One of the biggest lies the church has ever taught me is around sin. And here it is. Like other men and most men, I have a daily struggle with lust and pornography, and we fight it every day, and we try to stay on the right path, and that's all great. But here's the thing: as I was thinking about this whole thing of how do we conquer sin, right? It's first understanding the origin and the nature of sin. And the thing is with sin, we think, all of us do, we think somehow sin exists somewhere out in the world, somewhere in an environment or in a region or in a country or amongst certain people. And so what we do is we try to do everything and anything to sort of create this abstaining or this way of not necessarily entering those places. And that's a dangerous belief because here it is. What we're basically saying is that sin is outward. What we see in the world is something that's been placed in it to corrupt us. And that's a very self centered sort of absolving of responsibility and accountability. Because here's what I've learned: not so much that sin is somewhere outside, but what we see outside is the depravity and the desolation that exists from within us humanity. And what we see is in the world is the manifestation of that depravity in our lives. And so what sin is not necessarily something that's been placed to stumble, like to create a stumble block for us. I mean, it is, but it's so much the representation and the manifestation of how deeply we've fallen as a society. So if we're seeing that pornography and prostitution and sex trafficking, those are outward manifestations of the depravity that exists within ourselves. That's what we're seeing. It's not this thing that we should never touch because it's this evil thing that's been placed in this world. It's what we've created out of our heart. That's what the Bible is talking about. That's what Paul is talking about. It's not so much that what goes into us that defiles us, but more so what comes out of us. That's why Jesus says, check your heart, because that's where adultery and murder begins. And so everything that we're seeing in the world out there is the manifestation of our heart. And so why is that important? It's important because if you're trying to deal with sin and trying to overcome this thing like lust, you have to understand that where it's coming from. So yes, you can have behavior modification and you can isolate yourself. And those are very important things to recognize and say, I have to create these boundaries around certain things. That's fine. That's great. But what I'm finding more so now is I'm going to have to deal with the internal stuff in my heart. What is it that lies and lives in my heart that allows me to think that it's okay to tango with sin, to have a dance with the devil, and to entertain sin and have it like a pet, like Philip Anthony Mitchell is saying. And so, for any man out there, I promise you, the sin you're dealing with always starts internally. Outwardly, you can deal with that later. Think of it this way: we are not trying to deal with the symptom of a situation. We're trying to deal with the root cause, and that's our heart. Peace.